Welcome everyone to the captive audience. We're kind of doing a special captive audience tonight. It is about 7:15, but it's live, and I haven't been able to do these the last couple of weeks, so I wanted to catch up. There's been a lot of news since the Republican and Democrat primaries here in Oregon, and as you know, Christine Drazen is the nominee for Republicans. Tina Kotek was always the shoe-in, coronated by the Democrats as the incumbent. And then we have some races for Congress. Monique DeSpain is the 4th District nominee. And we also have in the 5th District, we also have a race. There was a Jonathan Lockwood was running for that position, but he did not get many votes in the end. And so Patty is now the nominee. And there's even been a Republican Unity event bringing everyone together last week to talk about how they're going to win the general election. So anyway, I thought I'd at least share with you a little bit about what's going on behind the scenes and right in front of everyone. And everything's shifted towards the general election now. Maybe some of the biggest news, ironically enough, that's happening right now is what's happening in California. Tomorrow is going to be election day. And, Patty Adair. Sorry, I didn't say the last name. Patty Adair is the nominee for the 5th District. And I believe if it's final for U.S. Senate, we also have David Brocksmith, state senator, has prevailed over Joe Ray Perkins, who was challenging him for the U.S. Senate nomination to face Jeff Markley this fall. Of course, that is a steep hill to climb, as is the 5th District, money-wise. The most competitive district by far in all of this is going to be, for federal races, is going to be the 4th District. Monique DeSpain is running in a rematch against Val Hoyle, who's one of the worst fundraisers in Congress. Anyway, I will post a few of the links here so you can go ahead and get information about these candidates, because at least the ones that I have handy, and you can follow them and get more information about how to help them, because actually this is where the real battle begins. And let me see if I can get Patty Adair's information up here. It's Patty for Congress. At least according to our Facebook page, it is. I'm waiting for it to show up on my screen. And then Monique for Congress is the other one. And then let's see if I can find some more information regarding, let's see here. I'm looking for the U.S. Senate race here. I'll try to post that perhaps in a subsequent episode. I got to go and find what the latest is with David Brocksmith. And of course, let's see, Drazen for governor. Let's see if I can find that. Nope, that isn't it. Sometimes when you can't guess it, then it gets tough. Christine Drazen, and it is Christine for Oregon. So I'll post that here. Anyway, these are all considered to be the top races in the state, and there's a lot of work ahead to make those races successful, and in some cases just reasonably competitive. So stay tuned, because I'm sure you'll be asked to do something in the meantime. Switching gears here, there's some breaking news that happened here over the weekend in Sandy, Oregon, which is generally a pretty subdued town, a nice town. There was a triple murder, and And a police officer was also shot and injured, but expect to survive. A guy named Brian Andrew Moore, 38 years old, was booked on 3 counts of murder late Sunday night after 3 people were killed in a shooting in Sandy. It was a domestic incident. The police were um, called and responded. And uh, this, I don't know any other details about what was really happening, except for the fact that this guy turns out to have a rap sheet, as you might have been unlikely to doubt. He was accused in 2017 of assaulting another man with a knife. He was convicted of attempting to commit a Class B felony, unlawful use of a weapon, and sentenced to 2.5 years in state prison. Um, but that was not his first offense. His criminal record includes multiple convictions stretching back to 2007, when he was convicted of unauthorized use of a vehicle. He's been convicted of theft, manufacturing and delivering a controlled substance, which is fentanyl or meth, almost certainly, and criminal mischief. And you know what? The one thing I'm sure of, since he's been convicted of a felony, is he's not eligible to own a firearm. Yet he's out on the street. And I just posted a link to one of the stories there you can check out. The other one has some video and provides a little bit more detail, but it looks like a pretty sad situation. And one, apparently this guy surrendered to law enforcement peacefully. I don't know exactly what the how peacefully that was, if he did shoot somebody, shot one of the police officers, but okay, I guess it's all a matter of interpretation. Anyway, kind of a mess, but it reminds us that our criminal justice system here in Oregon is completely screwed up when a guy like this possesses a firearm and is wandering around on his own recognizance in the streets of place like Sandy. And um, you know, we've come to expect this, unfortunately. There's another story that I want to bring to your attention, and you're not going to hear about this yet in the media, but hopefully you will. This Wednesday, there's going to be a hearing for um, uh, a release hearing for a guy named Dustin Wallace. When Dustin Wallace is 16 years old, he entered the bedroom of 5-year-old Sahara Dwight in Roseburg while she slept. He raped her and beat her and suffocated her until she died. And he was convicted a few years later of these as an adult. And of course, what happened? He was sentenced to 2 life sentences. He was found guilty on all the counts that he was convicted on, and that Douglas County judge actually said at the time that the guy had displayed zero remorse and had fabricated elaborate lies to the police throughout the investigation in order to avoid being convicted. However, under a process created by a Senate Bill 1008 in 2019, and then advanced further by the clemency actions of Governor Kate Brown at the time, a process was created for people who committed adult crimes and were convicted while they were juveniles to release them early from their sentence, even though he was sentenced to 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole. The Senate bill set up a process for juveniles going from 2019 on, but of course this took place before that. So Kate Brown made it retroactive, which is against the specific word and intention, legislative intent of the bill. Anyway, Wednesday, June 3rd in the morning, I believe at 8 a.m., there's going to be this hearing by it's a parole board that's been charged by an executive order a clemency order by Governor Kate Brown to consider releasing this gentleman into Roseburg, where he was originally from. Sahara's father, Tyler Dwight, has kicked into action and even appeared on Fox News on Saturday to share his family's fight to keep this killer behind bars, and tells the story of what happened and what he's been doing to stop it. Several prominent Republicans have gotten involved with this. And one of them, Monique Despain, who's running in the 4th Congressional District as the Republican nominee, has stepped forward and is calling on Oregonians to join her in demanding that Governor Kotek stop this release, asserting that Governor Kotek has the power to revoke clemency and even pardons, and that they could, at a minimum, Governor Kotek could pressure the parole board, who unfortunately are kind of stacked with people appointed by Kate Brown and Governor Kotek, who tend to think that Senate Bill 1008 was good process, and they've been following it. Anyway, this is a time and an opportunity for you to flood the governor's office, as well as message the parole board regarding this matter. And if you can do it before the hearing, 8 a.m. on Wednesday morning, maybe we can have an impact on their decision making, or even on the governor. But you got to do it right away, because that's just a day and a half from now. And it's a horrific crime. There's more details to it, but you can go and watch this interview on Fox News. It's also kind of worth digging into the fact that Monique Despain, even though this isn't a federal issue, is speaking out on this. And why is she doing that? Well, she was actually involved with fighting. She was the co-counsel, along with now Representative Kevin Mannix, father of Measure 11, the mandatory sentencing, truth in sentencing law, that takes the 10 most heinous crimes and requires a minimum, mandatory minimum sentence. She served as co-counsel with Kevin Mannix to sue and challenge Governor Kate Brown's clemency actions, which they asserted were unlawful. And in fact, she didn't follow the law laid out by the legislature. A lower court ruled in favor of the plaintiffs in this case, challenging Governor Brown, but it was appealed to the Oregon Court of Appeals, and they, of course, all appointed by Kate Brown and Democrats, ruled the other way, and unfortunately asserted that the Constitution gave Governor Brown basically unlimited clemency powers under the constitutional provision, and that there was no power of the legislature to regulate it. And that's what they said. So anyway, that's what's going to happen Wednesday. You can check this out. You can see actually what Monique Despain was doing to fight this over the years. And now she's just coming back and saying her constituent, as a Roseburg resident, needs our help. And it's time to stand up and challenge this very unpopular governor to take action. So all the information you need to do that is actually found in the press release that I just posted. You can read an article also by Lars Larson that, oops, that didn't exactly work. Let me try that again. An article by Lars Larson kind of describing some of the background. It's a bit shorter and you can check it out. But the press release tells you exactly what you can do about it. And I suggest you do. I have. Let's talk about Governor Kotek some more. Apparently, she's challenging the new Medicaid work reporting requirements that have kicked in. This says basically that somebody who wants to retain um, their coverage needs to show that they are at least engaging in 80 hours of work. It can be volunteer work, it can be training to get a job, it can be something like that, um, a month, and that they have to report what they're doing, that they're working or they're endeavoring to work or they're through training or they are volunteering. And she just deemed it as unworkable and decided they're not going to do it, even though it is federal law. And she has joined some other governors in demanding that the Trump administration stop forcing states to uh, to hold people who are capable of working um, accountable for reporting that they are working. And this letter sent by these governors to Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Warned that the states are being required to overhaul eligibility and technology systems without clear federal guidance within a tight time frame, saying that it could lead to loss of coverage for some patients. However, this has been out there for a year almost, and the governors have done nothing to be ready for it. They just say it's too hard, even though loads of other states are doing it. Oregon does have a particular problem with implementing technology and administering benefits. We saw that with the unemployment benefits during COVID when they did a horrendous job and nobody actually bothered getting rid of the people who were screwing it up until it became a massive crisis. And they're saying that they just don't want to do it. So anyway, they're asking for a waiver. This is There are already some waivers for people who are unable to work, who are taking care of children under a certain age as part of their Medicaid benefits, things like that. But um, this is pretty insane, and we have a pretty high unemployment rate right now. So it's something surprising actually that they're taking this point of view. But this is what you get from Tina Kotek. She just doesn't want to hold anybody accountable, including herself. But here's some more news. Tina Kotek has come out against IP28. This is uh, an initiative petition which has just turned in apparently enough signatures to potentially get on the ballot. They probably need a little bit more before the deadline, which they have until early July to make sure that they have at least 117,000 signatures. And they did turn in that many, and then they just turned in 9,000 more. They still probably need about 20,000 more to make sure that they can make the ballot. And if they do, it would essentially ban animal agriculture, fishing, and hunting, classifying all of that as animal cruelty, and making it so that all these industries and all these long time practices that humans have engaged in for um, 10,000 years will be banned in Oregon. And some Democrats actually coming out against it because I think they're very afraid that someone will assume that they're for it if they don't say anything. And that's true. Tina Kotek made a statement about it. And her message is she doesn't think it's the right direction for the state to go, which is a hilarious thing to say. She makes a statement saying that the long-standing tradition and livelihoods of farmers, ranchers, and fishermen should be respected, hunters, but that she's a strong animal welfare protection champion. So, by the way, Ted Nugent also also came out against it, but he said something different than Tina Kotek, and you should take a look at that. He spoke out on Newsmax. Anyway, it's important for every Democrat to come out, and every Republican, frankly, to say what they think about this issue, because this is truly something that'll be before the voters. But it really does matter where people come down on this. It is just amazingly stupid and absurd that this is even being considered. But this is Oregon has a kind of a kick me sign on its back, and that kick me sign has time and again led to things like Measure 110, uh, which is kind of based. Oops, that didn't quite work. I hate when copy and paste doesn't quite work. Sorry about that. We'll try that. And you can check this out. There's a Democrat, Anthony Broadman, state senator, who's come out to say that it's a bad idea. I just think that we should talk about what people care about and defend civilization. And these people, frankly, that are pushing this forward, they want to radically transform our civilization, as Obama once described it. They think it's a bad country and that everybody's bad who does the things that we've been doing for many decades, and they want to stop it. So either step up and pay attention and speak out and let people know what you think about it, or get ready to not have meat anymore or fish. Frankly, it even impacts pest removal, because pests will then, you have to wait for pests in your house to die a natural death before you can have someone come in and remove them, which is just insane. Anyway, so please check that out. Governor Kotek, who's playing kind of a clever game, claiming that she's for prosperity after 3 years of driving businesses out of the state, and doing nothing about it, in fact, making it worse, has formed an economic prosperity council. And this prosperity council actually has come out with some reasonable recommendations. Among them are recommendations that would involve harvesting timber, cutting state regulations by at least 20%, lowering taxes on the state's highest income earners, who are the investor class in this state, and make Oregon as a whole more business friendly. Apparently, this is being her prosperity council. She claims that she's going to listen to them. I don't see how she's going to implement any of them before the election, which means this is just kind of eyewash for the election. But she's also getting a backlash, supposedly, from Oregon's public employee unions and progressive groups, who condemn the ideas brought forward by the Prosperity Council. And they're the ones who usually decide what's happening in the state. They're the ones who have usually been supportive of Tina Kotek. Now, it turns out that some of these groups have held off on endorsing Tina Kotek, but it's hilarious because these are all government employee unions, and they're already getting everything they want from the government, and courtesy of Tina Kotek, who was the Speaker of the House, by the way, for 10 years before she took over as governor when she won in 2022 narrowly. So this is hilarious. They're announcing their opposition to her after the primary is over and saying that they're not endorsing her, but they're not going to endorse Christine Drazan. So this is just a big kabuki dance to fool voters into thinking that they're going to get something better from Tina Kotek, a career politician who's absolutely done everything she can legislatively and as an executive to lay waste to Oregon's economy. And here's the evidence of it, by the way. Let me see if I can post this article for you. 88,000 Oregonians have left. This is what it says. The latest data on driver's license changes show that 88,000 Oregonians have moved to another state. This is measured by the number of Oregonians who have surrendered their driver's licenses, the number of new Oregonians dropping in dropping their state driver's license has been shrinking and represents a 5-year low. This reflects the forecast of a change in population that if, based on this trend and the timing of it, Oregon will lose, this is the 5-year trend rather, Oregon will lose a congressional seat. California will lose 4 seats. Idaho, Utah, and Arizona will pick up 2 seats each. So that's kind of the long and the short of it. Please take a look at this one because it's an impactful chart. It shows where people are leaving, what states are losing, and pretty much all of those states are blue states. Some of them are swingier than others, like Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. But others are just disastrously um, deep blue Democrat states, and they're like Illinois, Minnesota, we know all about, New York, California, and of course Oregon. And the biggest gainers, of course, are the 3 states I just mentioned, as well as Texas, Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina. So 88,000 is a lot of people, and I can tell you that just by talking to people campaigning down in the 4th district, it's true. Nearly everybody says it when you talk to them. They have something that's keeping them here, but they would leave if they could, and some plan to. And many businesses also plan to, which means that that Prosperity Council, it's unfortunate that it's eyewash. It won't happen because most of those things would have to receive legislative approval by the Democrats who run the state. So it's not going to happen. What did receive legislative approval was something that, as it turns out, 69% of Oregonians oppose, and it was the Blazer Moda Center bailout. It's a significant redirection of general funds coming from taxpayers in Oregon to the state of Oregon and then being sent or allocated to renovating the Moda Center in order to keep the Blazers here. But of course, it has no guarantee of doing that. And many people opposed it because there is actually no deal. This is like a concession to the new owner of the Blazers, without any reciprocation from the owner of the Blazers promising to keep them here. So 69.1% opposed public funding statewide. Just 7.5% expressed strong support for the proposal. Even in the Portland metro area, where the Blazers, this is their hometown base, 60.7% opposed public funding for the proposal. And only 10.6% of Portland metro respondents expressed strong support. And they tested some of the arguments back and forth, and the numbers didn't waver very much. They pretty much stayed the same. So take a look at this. Apparently now there's a group, the Oregon Capital Watch Foundation, has launched a statewide educational ad that exposes how unpopular this plan is, and of course assigns Governor Kotek with the blame because she did sign it into law. So while they aren't doing the things to keep the state safe, they aren't doing the things to keep the state, to make sure the state can be prosperous and people are leaving, they're also not listening to you and sending tons of money into public money into a project while they keep taxes high and reduce the tax base. They're just not listening to you. And this is going to play big, I think, here in the coming months, because we're going to have a governor's race. We're going to have a governor's election, and there's just some things you can't run away from and pretend that they don't exist, and this is one of them. And apparently, the big solar proposals, which many of us thought those were kind of dead once the Trump administration came in, apparently they are getting ready to do a 150 megawatt installation that is going to be put on prime farmlands in Oregon's agricultural heartland. And um, they call it agrivoltaics. And this is part of the state's effort or aim to meet their clean energy goals, which they never will using solar and wind. The offshore wind, which many of the liberals are still trying to push forward here in Oregon, has essentially been handed a death sentence by the Trump administration, which means that as soon as there's another change of administration, it'll be back. So here we go. We've got um, Oregon's big solar is now on it. Another big project with lots of public money going into it is light rail. And the I-5 bridge, which has been ballooning in cost, um, they need it'll probably cost somewhere around $14.4 billion to replace the one bridge based on the current design, which would be paid with $6 billion cash on hand that would be a combination of Oregon and Washington. And supposedly, although I thought I heard it was canceled, some federal money. But you can take a look at this, and the light rail part of it looks like it might be circling the drain because it's a light rail to nowhere. It's a 1.9 mile extension of the Metropolitan Area Express or MAX line, the yellow line from Expo Center Station in Portland to a future station in Evergreen Boulevard near I-5, known as Library Square. This is what they want to do, and they want to make it part of the bridge. But this all the people that are saying they're in it for the long haul are spending other people's money, and apparently they're running out of it. And so there's some pretty heavy criticism that this is a light rail to nowhere, and yet it has defenders and it has money that they plan to throw at it. Meanwhile, they have a bridge that probably won't survive even a moderate to strong earthquake. So we'll just have to see what happens with that. I am not really sure. Shifting gears, it looks like out in Boardman, where they shut down a coal plant providing power some years ago, they are now putting on data centers. And there's a real controversy about data centers. There's a battle between Democrats and Republicans on this stuff, but it's also an economic opportunity and a necessity for AI and all the stuff that's taking place with that. So have a look at this article. I want you to take it in. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I think we need to stay on top of this because apparently people on the left consider data centers and AI evil. And yet it's expanding, and we'll see. By the way, did homeless people cause the fire on 8 floating homes that has taken place on Friday in Portland on the Columbia River? Nearly half of all Portland fires are related to homeless and homeless camps. And so they're investigating this, and it looks like the intrepid homeless reporter Kevin Dahlgren has exposed some of what's happening and showing what these homes are. So, we wonder why 88,000 people are leaving the state. We got terrible leadership. We have terrible policies. We have an economy that's being crushed. We have poor public safety. We even have policies that are trying to release convicted killers onto the streets. We're paying for arenas that may not be occupied. We are light rail that's going nowhere, and implementing big green solar projects as if we have gobs of money and solar's going to supply us everything we need. And then we've got this incessant problem with drug addicted homeless in Portland and across the state that keeps getting worse. I hope I've painted a clear picture for all of you. I'm going to rerun this episode tomorrow night for those of you who missed it tonight. But definitely take a look at these articles, and don't forget, to make your voice heard by email or phone on behalf of Sahara Wright. Uh, uh, Tyler, her father, will appreciate it greatly, and actually everybody who could be potentially threatened by not only Dustin Wallace, but everybody who could in the future be released under this policy. We got to stand up and we got to speak up. So take a look at that. And anyway, I appreciate you taking the time to watch here tonight and to listen. And I wish you the very best. I'll see you on a future episode of The Captive Audience. And on Wednesday, you should have Donna Leslie again. Have a good night, everyone.